Okay guys, so what we're gonna do is talk about how to start your personal mandala in Adobe. What you should have already done is you should have your pie piece finalized, drawn super carefully with Sharpie, and then have make sure everything you have is a closed shape. And I would look over that really carefully just to make sure, because it's kind of frustrating when you have to start this over and over. So once you have your pie piece photographed, then you're going to make sure you get it onto your MacBook. You can do that over email. And then one thing you might have to also do is if you download it onto your MacBook, I'm going to go to my Finder. I'm going to go to my downloads. You can have the same thing on your computer. See how this is an HEIC file? That's a file type that is not something you cannot open in Adobe. So if you downloaded your pie piece and you go to downloads and you see that it's there, not as a JPEG, but as an HEIC, then you're going to open it. And just going to quickly go to, I think it's File. You're going to do Export. You want to make sure it's a JPEG. You want to make sure the quality is as high as it can go. And you don't have to retitle it, but you can if you want to. And then I'm going to make sure it's saved to the desktop because it's a little bit easier to find on the desktop. So title it, know where you're going to save it to, make sure it's a JPEG in the format, and make sure it's all the way as good as it can be. You're going to hit save. You can see mine just popped up over here. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to close that. And now I have my pie piece on my desktop. And I'm going to go into Adobe and go File New. You're going to get the window that looks kind of like this, and this is important. Make sure up here you have your initials and it says Mandala. And then make sure your units is in inches, also important. And then lastly, you want to make this the right size so when it prints, it's correct. The paper we're going to print on is 17 inches by 17 inches. Make sure your width and your height are both 17. And then the last thing you're going to do is make sure your color mode is CMYK. It could be on RGB, that's for print, or that's for screen and websites. CMYK is the color you're going to use for printing. That's a standard. So once you have your title, your units, your size, and your color, you're going to hit create. And you'll see your artboard. Remember, the artboard is like the white space you're going to work on. That is a nice square. And I'm also going to do is I'm going to make sure my whole window, my whole workspace is in my screen so I can see everything. So when you open Adobe, take your time to make sure everything's visible on your computer, and then come to this little window, this little switch workspace. Click on that. Make sure you're on Essentials Classic. That way your screen will look very similar to mine. It'll make this a lot less painful. So once your pie piece is on your MacBook, you can do two things. You can either go to File, go down to Place, and then find it. You can go, if it's still in your downloads, because it was a JPEG, that's fine. Click in your downloads, it should be in there. If it is, mine was on my desktop, so I have it right here. I'm going to click Place and see how it kind of attaches itself to the mouse. And then when I click somewhere on here to release it, I'm going to click with my mouse. See how it's huge? It's a really large file. That's great. The other thing you can do is if you have it on your desktop, you can always drag something into Adobe too. Same thing. So once it's in here, you'll see that this file is so large, it's a lot larger than my artboard. My artboard is still in here, but it's kind of small. So the first thing I'm going to do is hit Shift and drag this guy down. And if I hold Shift this entire time, it won't change proportions. That's important. I'm holding Shift on my keyboard. If I don't hold Shift down and I move this around, I'm going to do this. I'm going to warp all that hard work I spent trying to make sure that I was drawing within that pie piece size. So it's important that I'm going to do Command Z to undo all that stuff I just did. And I'm going to make sure it fits in my artboard. So I'm going to hold down Shift again, take a corner, make it smaller, click, and then click and drag it into the artboard. I know it fits. And now what I'm going to actually do is do the image trace, and that should be over here. If it's clicked and selected, you should see image trace. If you don't click it, if it's not selected, so you can't do image trace, and again, Adobe will only edit what you tell it selected to. So if I click on it again, do image trace, black and white logo, And I'm going to hit expand. That's the other big thing, that I can edit everything. And this is a little trick. I'm going to actually drag it off the artboard. It's a gray background. And I'm going to use my direct selection tool. That's my white arrow. And you can see A is a shortcut for that. So I'm going to hit A on my keyboard. It's my white arrow. I'm going to click on this white space, click off of it, click back on the white space, and hit delete. And now that I've done that, you can see I have all these closed shapes. That's great. And then I don't have anything that is see-through that I don't want to be see-through. What I do have, though, is I have some shapes I want to get rid of. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to click in this shape. Now see how that one's selected? I want to make that see-through because this is the space between the branches. I don't want to actually see that. So I have it clicked, I have it selected. I'm going to come over here. My fill is on top. So if I do the shortcut to none, now it's see-through. I'm going to select over here, same thing. Click on see-through. I'm going to zoom in, so make sure I just grab the white part. I think that's all the ones that were meant to be changed. So now what I'm going to do is take this guy. I'm actually going to leave it over here for a quick second. I'm going to come back to my artboard, leave this one over here, and I'm going to make my circle template. This is the thing that I'm going to make. I'm going to put all my pie pieces in so I know everything's kind of ordered. And to do this, I come to my shape tool. Now yours might be on a different shape. Whatever shape you used most recently is the one that's going to be up there. So if you see how there's this little white arrow at the bottom, if you click and hold on that little white arrow, you see all your shape options. So pick ellipse, and now hold shift on your keyboard, click and drag your mouse until you get a circle that's 15 inches. Okay, so now I have a circle that is 15 inches, and you'll notice a couple of things. If I click V on my keyboard, the black arrow, and I try and move this circle, it went away. I have to make sure I click on the line, or click and drag on the line to move it, or click on the center part to move it around. And you can tell you can't see it because it's see-through and see-through. So if I change the stroke, if I click on that, pick black, hit OK, and click off of it, now you can see it. Now I want to do a couple things. I want to make sure it's centered on my page. So what I want to do, make sure it's dead center on the artboard. So I'm going to go to View. I'm going to go to my rulers. Where are those? Rulers, show rulers. And the whole page, remember, is 17 inches across. So if I want to do the halfway point for 17 inches, okay, so what I'm going to do now is go to 8.5. That's the halfway point for 17 inches. And double click it. And make sure you double click not off the ruler. If you double click off the ruler, nothing happens. You have to be on the ruler. I'm going to come down over here. Finds 8.5. Double click it. And now I know the center of my page, and I'm going to take the circle, and it was pretty close, but I'm going to drag it to the center like this. And I just want to divide these quadrants one more time so I know exactly how to put my pie piece in. So I'm going to go to my line segment tool. I'm going to click on my line segment tool. I'm going to kind of hover outside of the circle, because if I go inside the circle, it gets a little bit funky. I'm going to hover outside. I'm going to hold down Shift. Again, Shift is perfection. It'll be a perfect circle. It'll maintain a perfect proportion. If I click and drag while holding Shift down, I get a perfect 45-degree line. I'm going to do the other side too. And now what I can do is hit my V on my keyboard for my black arrow, and I can take these guys and just align them to the center. And now I have a perfectly divided circle. And that's my starting point. So what I'm going to do now is pop over to Layers. I'm going to label this one Circle. I'm going to come down to the Create New Layer, the plus. I'm going to hit the plus icon. Up here, I'm going to label this one Pie Piece. I'm going to select my pie piece. I'm going to draw a selection over just my pie piece, nothing else. Hit Command-C for copy. Go to my pie piece, click on it, hit Command-V, and now what I'm going to do is delete this one because I no longer need it. Now I'm going to lock my circle. So if I make my circle invisible, if I toggle it off, now I won't have to worry about all that visual nonsense. I can just work on this. And now what I will do is go to my pie piece layer, make sure if I'm on here, actually it'll just move it, I'll just fix it for me. I'll make sure I'm on my pie piece layer, and now that this is highlighted, the next thing we're going to start doing is adding color. So to add color, you're going to make sure your piece is selected, and then what you're going to do is hit K on your keyboard and see how it kind of changes. You have now your paint bucket tool activated, and if I zoom, I can't really see what's going on though, so I do have to zoom in. Now I can see that I have spaces to drop colors.